Hello everyone. A common defense for black, a very strong defense for black, the Sicilian defense. C6 promotes the open Sicilian as well as several other variations. However, white has a move that's a big thorn in black's side. That's bishop b5. What this does is it really threatens to damage black's pawn structure and take away an important knight in the Sicilian. So, having some trouble with this variation in the past, I've spent quite a bit of time just understanding how to effectively break the pin without losing the advantage, or without losing equality. And sometimes white can't really handle the sharp lines that unfold. So, my recommendation against this Rossolimo variation is knight a5, because after knight a5 the pin is broken and white's bishop looks quite awkwardly placed here on b5. So a common move is c3, preparing d4, and also possibly opening lines for the queen, preparing b4 perhaps. So black moves a6, and a6 ends up getting rid of this bishop here, gaining a tempo, preparing a queenside strike. And the only way for white to move this bishop and retain the pin is a4, and if white doesn't do this, then you're off the hook. And probably the most popular variation would be bishop to e2 instead. And in this case, black is fine, and black doesn't have to worry about the pin and can continue his development as normal. So a possible line would be e6, castle, knight f6, putting more pressure on the e4 pawn. If e5, then simply knight d5 works. So the pawn push, it's recommended that you trade. You can develop your bishop perhaps, but from this point it's really you have a number of moves you could possibly use here. Anyways, back to the main line. We had just seen the c3 pawn push, a6, bishop retreat. Now we can continue to attack this bishop. And then at this point the bishop, the only safe square for the bishop would actually be c2. So after c2 we bring out our bishop to b7, gaining control of center, putting pressure on the e4 pawn, getting our bishop developed. White can then castle, and black pushes e6, preparing maybe d5 eventually, opening lines for the dark square bishop. That's going to happen eventually now. The most common move for white would be d4, controlling the center, and black should trade in this point, and white should recapture with his knight. Black can continue with his development, adding more pressure to the e4 square. Now, white usually defends. When I say usually, I mean there aren't a ton of games in this variation, but according to Fritz and according to the database on Chess Tempo, I found this variation comes about naturally. And black's just okay, so black's retaining his high win or draw ratio here, because oftentimes black is quite happy with a draw, and in any position where white has less than a 40% chance of winning, say, is usually good for black. So then after this point, the queen to c7 is an excellent move, preparing to connect the rooks eventually. So the reason I like black in this position is white really is a little bit hemmed in here. His bishop can't make too much progress until this pawn moves forward. The dark square bishop is just completely out of order. It's not going to be easy for white to connect his rooks, and black has a decent attack coming forth on the queen side, pretty natural, with some pawn moves. I like black's bishop here. It can come to e7 if castling is intended early. It can attack that knight, and it can support a queenside attack. So that's my solution to the Rossolimo position in the Sicilian.